Welcome to the GMAT Strategy Podcast. You're here because you believe there's a better way to study for the GMAT, and so do we. We created the GMAT strategy to maximize your results and minimize your effort so you can get to the fun parts about business school and life as quickly as possible. My name is Isaac Puglia, and I've been teaching GMAT classes and tutoring privately for the GMAT for almost a decade, and I've achieved a 99th percentile score on the GMAT and helped thousands of students get into the business schools of their choice. I'm excited to be a part of your MBA journey since we all at TGS think our world can benefit from the best possible business leaders that we can find. If this show is bringing you value, please share it with your friends and family who are studying so that together we can make this process as easy and as painless as it can possibly be. Let's go.
Today, let's talk about how to start your GMAT studies in 2025. Happy New Year, everyone. As you may or may not know, the GMAT has gone through some significant updates in the past 18 months. And so I want to make sure that all of you are starting off on the right foot here, since our obsession is efficiency. And if we're not helping you be more efficient, then we are failing in our mission. So today we want to talk about what the GMAT is, how it's scored differently from other exams, what a good score is, what your first steps should be, how to pick the right materials based on your goal, your timeline, and your budget, and then give you some additional tips to help accelerate this process. Let's jump right in. What's the GMAT? The GMAT is the most popular standardized test that people take in order to get into business school or MBA programs. I assume you know what an MBA is, or I assume you know what the GMAT is if you're here right now, or at least you know why the GMAT is important for your goals. So let's go past the obvious things and just talk about some of the granular aspects of the exam. There's 3 sections now on the GMAT. There's a quantitative section, there's a verbal section, and there's a section called Data Insights. If you want more information about all 3 of those individual sections, you can go back about 10 months in the feed and you'll find specific episodes on how to be great at GMAT Quant, GMAT Verbal, and Data Insights. At that point, when we published those episodes, the test was called the GMAT Focus Edition. If you're confused about Focus versus GMAT, there's only one version of the GMAT in 2025. It's just called the GMAT. But that is a rebrand of what was called the GMAT Focus Edition in 2024, which was a major update from the 2023 version of the exam. And if you want all the details on that, just go back to the previous episode in this feed, and I'll talk you through all the important differences and how you can get more information about those nuances. But if you're already well educated on that front, let's go one step further. In the quant section of the GMAT, you have just one type of problem. It's called problem solving. It's a very familiar format, standard 5-option, multiple choice math questions, basically. And it covers math content up until about high school geometry. So basic algebra, arithmetic, linear equations, exponents, things like that. No trigonometry, no calculus, nothing like that. If you're looking for a really, really basic primer, then last year we went through an entire series on GMAT Math Basics, which will help you get set up with all the essential elements that you need to progress in a course or a self-study program that's a little bit more math intensive. So if you've started studying already and you're feeling a little overwhelmed by some of the math concepts, then that series should really help you out. The verbal section has 2 problem types. One's called reading comprehension, which tests, unsurprisingly, your ability to comprehend reading. And then another question type called critical reasoning, which are kind of like logic puzzles. And we've got specific episodes on how to be great at reading comprehension and critical reasoning in that how to be great at GMAT Focus Verbal episode. The data insights section has several problem types. I like to split it into 2 categories, one called data sufficiency, which is a brand new type of question if you haven't taken the GMAT or related exams before. And we've got a whole episode on data sufficiency in the past, and we also have a data sufficiency lesson within that episode on the data insights section specifically. The other category of problems I'll refer to as integrated reasoning, which technically includes several problem types that are all data and inference based. We have a specific episode on integrated reasoning, and we have specific integrated reasoning lessons in that data insights episode. So if you're not familiar with these problem types and you want a good primer to go to the next level of depth with your knowledge, then I recommend checking that GMAT GMAT Focus Quant, GMAT Focus Verbal, and GMAT Focus Data Insight episode series out, and we will link those in the description of this content. Because I've gone in depth with all of those problem types in past episodes, I'm just going to move on and stay at the high level so that you can use this to start off your studies efficiently. And then if you want more depth, those episodes are there for you. Let's quickly touch on how the GMAT is scored. And this is important because it's very, very different from exams you've taken in the past, because virtually all exams that you've taken in the past are probably based on accuracy. And it might just be absurd to even consider an exam that is not based on accuracy, because you've probably never even considered that an exam would be graded like that. So the GMAT, just to dive right in, is not strictly based on accuracy. Your score is not strictly a function of how many questions you get right and how many questions you get wrong. So just let that blow your mind for a minute. That might explain some of the challenges that you might have seen people having out there in the world with the exam. So you do need to get questions right. To be clear, accuracy is part of what creates a great GMAT score, but the score is basically understood as the difficulty level of the final problem you see in the section. So it's much more about the difficulty level of questions you're getting right and wrong versus the number of questions you're getting right and wrong. And that is such a different playing field than most people are used to, that it's really, really worth spending some time to try to understand that. Now, if you feel like you already understand that and you've been researching this for a while, or you have a great coach who explained it to you very quickly at the beginning of your prep, that's fantastic news. You can proceed with the rest of the episode. If you're not sure how that might work and you want to understand it well, then there's a video on our website called How to Reach Your Dream GMAT Score in Half the Normal Time. It's linked in the description of this content. It's free. I highly recommend watching that, and that will help you understand the algorithm well enough to avoid many of the common pitfalls that people get into reading a bunch of incorrect information about how the GMAT scoring algorithm works. And it's kind of shocking how much incorrect information is out there on the internet. So just please be careful, everybody, with learning about the GMAT scoring algorithm. It's a wild world. The reason I'm not going to go into that here is manyfold, but the main reason is just that it creates more confusion if that's being explained in a pure audio format like this. And so I wanted to have a good, strong visual to help you understand that, because it's just very strange and very new for a lot of people, and it causes people a lot of headaches and a lot of problems, and I don't want you to be one of those people. So ergo the visual and the video on the website. Let's talk about what a good GMAT score is. This, again, might just seem like comically evident, but there's actually a lot of problems just in this current moment in time with the transition from the old exam to the new exam. So let's clear up any potential confusion there. If you want to go to a top 10 business school, the sort of common threshold used to be a 700 or better level score on the old score scale. That score scale is not in use anymore, and all old scores end in a 0, all new scores end in a 5. So if you're looking around and looking at current GMAT scores, you're like, what's a 645 or what's a 545? When there's going to be a lot of blog material from pre-2024 on 700 plus, 730, 550, whatever. So that's the easiest way that I've found for people to differentiate between material that's outdated, talking about the old score scale, not probably going to be very relevant, if at all relevant anymore. So I would definitely only use that if you're an expert or you have expert guidance on this path. Otherwise, you want to be looking at material that talks about scores that end in a 5. That's going to be really, really key. And that's an easy differentiator as a student getting started on this GMAT journey, to not get swept up in all the old material that's on the internet still. I mean, I would say at least 90% of GMAT material out there is focused on the old version of the exam and is not really relevant to your studies anymore. Again, if you want super detailed breakdowns of the old exam versus new exam and what you need in 2025, that's in the previous episode. But I'm going to assume that you've listened to that, and I'm just going to move on at this point. So now with the new GMAT that just came out, that old 700 level is now a 645. So you can think about new scores as being 55 points lower than old scores. So if you got a 645 on your exam, that's equivalent to a 700 on the old exam, and that's kind of like a threshold of excellence for very top MBA programs. And then depending on your goals, where you want to go, you can adjust your goal up or down, above or below that 645 level. and you can check out the average and median GMAT scores at your target programs on their website. Quick caveat about that, they're going to be using old data because they haven't let in enough people with the new exam to get a strong data set with that. More on that in the previous episode. So for now, you'll want to take those median and mean GMAT scores that they have on schools' websites and drop them by 55 points to set your personal goal. Okay, reach out to us if you're confused about that. It's basically what they say minus 55, and then you can adjust up or down depending on your goals and your specific situation. If you want to reach out to us, we're just at the GMAT strategy on current social channels, or you can email us at contact, CONTACT, at thegmatstrategy.com. So basically, if you're going to a top 10 school, you would like to have a 645 or better. There's a lot of variance within that, and you can reach out to many admissions professionals who can help you make assessments about your specific candidacy and situation. Many of them offer free calls, and I would encourage you to do a handful of those as you're starting out your journey so that you can figure out what a good GMAT score is going to be for you personally, how your work experience and your career positioning is going to play into the rest of your application, and just get a nice view of the big picture before you get too far down this path and realize you've not planned things out well, if that makes sense. Okay, I think that covers us there. Now, most people are going to talk in terms of this 3-digit overall score, but I do want you to know that the individual section scores matter. So I just told you a moment ago that there's 3 sections on the GMAT. You're going to get an individual score for each one of those 3 sections. So you'll have a quant score, a verbal score, and a data insight score. And then those will be combined into your overall 3-digit score. The way those get combined is not really important right now. The thing that's important right now is the individual scores matter and the 3-digit score that we were just talking about matters. Just to cut right to the chase, right now, as of today, I would say that conservatively, 78 would be the minimum quant score that a top school would want to see. Top MBA programs still consider the MBA a very quantitative heavy degree, and so they want to see that your capacity to perform with quant material is strong. I would say that 73 is probably the minimum threshold for a verbal score, and 75 would be the minimum threshold for DI. If you want a really easy shorthand for setting some initial targets for each section, I would say 78 across the board is a good way to go. 78 quant, 78 verbal, 78 DI is a good way to go. That would put your 3-digit score somewhere in the high 500s, probably like a 575, 585 level. And that's going to be considered the low cutoff for a lot of top schools. Now, if you had a higher quant score, that could help you get away with a 73 minimum on verbal and still give you a good shot at the school, because if you have a higher quant score but a lower verbal score, then your 3-digit score would theoretically stay the same. You can think about each section being roughly equally weighted in the calculation of the total score. And if you got a 78 quant, 73 verbal, and 75 DI, those minimums I was talking about, that would get you around a 515. That would be like the super low cutoff for most top schools. For top schools, I would say under 600, you've got an uphill battle, like a major uphill battle in terms of making up for the fact that your score is going to be lower than the median scores at these top schools, let's say top 20 for now. And it's totally overcomable. Like if you look at the range for incoming candidates to Stanford's Graduate School of Business, which is one of the most selective schools in the world, the minimum in the range was a 520 on the old exam, which would be like below a 500 on the new exam. So if you subtract 55 points from 520, you would get the new exam score. And that's kind of surprisingly low for a lot of people. I think a lot of people are like, wait, like how does that happen? So that person probably had other exceptional aspects of their profile, like very, very exceptional. And so that could make up for a lower GMAT score. But for most of us, I guess just statistically speaking, please don't take this the wrong way, we are in the normal part of the bell curve of MBA applicants. Just again, like we by definition are probably in the middle 80%. And maybe you are that super exceptional person, which is awesome. It still will help you to get a higher score on the GMAT in terms of your odds of getting in. And basically from about this 515 level that I just talked about on the new exam all the way up to a perfect score, 805, your odds of getting into top schools go up They clearly demonstrably go up the higher your score is. So higher is better. Having said that, if you're in a very unique situation and you just need a quick score, then theoretically it is technically possible to get in below 600. But I would strongly recommend setting your goal above 600. I think 615 is like a realistic minimum for most, let's call it like people in the middle 80% of the applicant pool, and then higher is better. So like I said, 645 is like a kind of the threshold of excellence, and then above 645 everything helps, but at that point your GMAT score is probably not holding back your application after 645. So at that point you can probably focus on other aspects of your application if you feel like you have other weaknesses, such as your work experience has some deficiencies, or your undergraduate GPA is not that good, or you haven't been really engaging with extracurricular stuff outside of work that shows what kind of person you are or fulfills you on a basic human level and like demonstrates your passions to someone who's evaluating your candidacy. This gets sort of more into that admissions type conversation, which is why I was recommending that you reach out to some admissions professionals and at least get a little bit of free information, even if you can't afford their services. And if you can't afford their services, then a professional coach is going to help by and large. Make sure that you do your diligence, though. Talk to at least 3 people before you make an investment. And if you can get some personal references from people you've known who've had success, that's usually the best data that you can get in terms of picking a good admissions consultant to help you with the overall trajectory of your application. But just in case you're not going to be able to afford those people, or you're in a super duper time crunch and you like literally don't have time to do a 30-minute intro call with these people, then I pretty much just talked you through the basic elements of what's going to admit you to business school. You've got your undergraduate GPA, you've got your work experience, past, present, and then future goals. And then you've got your stuff that you do outside of work, past, present, and future. And then you've got your GMAT score. And all of those are roughly equally weighted in the application. So if you have a lower GPA, you can make up for that with a higher GMAT score. If you have a lower GMAT score, you could make up for that with a higher GPA or exceptional work experience, such as you were promoted to managing director when you were 25 years old. It's not happening for most people. Just saying, it's pretty rare. So most of us are not going to be in that kind of category, which is why we're here right now, because there's probably not a whole lot you can do to go back and change your past work experience. Probably not a whole lot you can do to go back and change your undergraduate GPA at this point in your career. Probably not going to be able to do that. But in a relatively short amount of time, you can have a significantly positive impact on your GMAT score. And so it's a great place to be right now, because if you work hard and you work smart and you put in the longest hours that you personally can, everybody's going to have limits, but if you work long, hard, and smart, then you're going to be able to really increase the odds of success by investing time, energy into the GMAT process. And that's what I'm here to help you do, because I struggled like crazy with this test and figured out a lot of things that have been helpful to a lot of people. So trying to share as much as I can here with you. Now, just coming back to what's a good GMAT score. Again, below 600, it's going to be a huge uphill battle at these top programs. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. Obviously, it happened for someone who got a 520 and got into Stanford last year. Having said that, it's so unlikely. It's so unlikely that that you're going to be that person who's like a former Navy SEAL who won an Olympic gold medal and is on your 3rd startup right now. Like you're just probably not that person. I'm not that person. That's okay. That's okay. It doesn't mean you're not going to get in. It just means that you have to work a little bit harder in another arena that you have a little bit more control over. Let's put it that way. Most of us are not going to do much to control the past at this point, but there's a lot we can do to control the future. So that's summing up those points. And then I recommend that if you want to go to a top 20 program, you set 645 as your target and that you work as long, hard, and smart as you can. That's the purpose of this material. I'm going to help you work longer, harder, and smarter through all our content here. And that's going to get you the best odds of success of making your dreams come true, which is what we want to help you do. So after you've reached those minimums, let's return back to the specifics here. Let's say we're going to use this 78 across the board as like a minimum, which would get you close to that 600 level. Let's say you get 78 quant, 78 verbal, 78 DI, and you're right around like 585 level. After you get that, you want to work on the section that you personally think will be the easiest to improve at. Because once you've hit those individual section minimums, now the only thing that matters to top schools is the 3-digit score. And the higher your quant score, the higher your 3-digit score is going to be. The higher your verbal score, the higher your 3-digit score is going to be. So let's say you got 78 across the board and you're like, I feel like there's the most room to grow in verbal. And I feel like I've kind of like maxed out my quant abilities. Maybe you're that person. That's fine. I talk to a lot of people every year who are in that situation. No big deal. You're going to maintain your quant and your DI scores at that point, and you're going to go all in on verbal, and you're going to try to max out the verbal, get that as high as you possibly can get it, and that's going to greatly improve your 3-digit score. And that's the fastest path to getting the minimums that you want in each 3 sections, and then the highest overall 3-digit score, and getting this whole process done with, which, let's be honest, is just a means to an end. Most people aren't here because they're passionate about the GMAT or doing well on standardized tests. Although if that's you, that's awesome. Reach out to us. We've got a spot for you at TGS. But that's very rare. Most of you are just here to knock this out as fast as possible, get into business school, and change the world, whether that's just your personal world or the world at large or everything in between. And all of that's cool by me, just for the record. Again, if you're not sure which section you should be going all in on and you're already at this point of like 78, 78, 78 and you're struggling, just shoot us a DM or email us and we'll be happy to help. Yeah, again, just tying this point off, and sorry I'm going long on this, but I'm just doing it because I think it's really going to help you a lot to have this information from the beginning. Basically, higher is better. Like if you've already got a killer undergraduate GPA, or it's as good as it's going to get, you've got great work experience, you've got great references, you've got all the brand recognition, you've got good extracurriculars, et cetera, then the thing that's going to improve your application the most, that's the most controllable, is going to be GMAT. And so you're going to want to focus on the sections that you think you can improve the most, and you're going to want to put significant time and energy into that process because it's very competitive, and I'll talk about that in a second. So a lot of us tend to approach this situation thinking like the applicant pool is just all business people or like quote unquote regular people. But that's actually not true. Most people who take the GMAT are already like you and me, who have already, let's just call it self-identified as achiever type people. They're very focused on their career. They're willing to devote a significant amount of time and energy to improving and doing better, becoming more, learning more, all that stuff. A lot of people are very competitive, and I mean that in like the most positive way, where like they're not competitive in the emotional reaction way of like their feelings get hurt when someone does better than them. They're competitive in the way of like they know how to work long, hard, and smart. Like they know how to compete in the marketplace, if that makes sense. And so it's a good idea to realize that the pool of people in this segment is really high quality. So the reason I bring that up is some of you are going to be in this position where you're so naturally talented at standardized tests that you're not going to have to work that hard, and it's not going to take much energy for you to do really well. And that's awesome. If that's you, then like please just do something great with your talent for yourself or the planet, whatever you like. For the vast majority of us, I would say at least 98, maybe 99% of us, we're not going to be that talented, and we're just going to have to sweat it out. That was me. And that's why we're here right now. So just giving you the proper frame for this, you don't want to think about this as like, oh, I did well on the SAT and the ACT, and so it's automatically guaranteed that I'm going to do well on the GMAT. Like I said, you might be that person. And if you are, that's amazing. But the SAT and ACT applicant pool is just not as competitive as the top MBA pool. And the reason I bring that up is not to discourage you. It's to set the proper expectations so that you can level up in this process and see that challenge as an opportunity to get better at investing your time, get better at investing your energy, become a better investor in general, become a better problem solver investor in general, and just become a person who's overall more valuable to a business right now. Like use this GMAT process as a way to improve yourself. That's going to make you a more compelling applicant. It's going to make it more likely that you're going to get into business school. And it's going to make it a lot more likely that you're going to have the things that you want in your life. Again, if you're that person who's just so talented, it doesn't even matter, and you just get amazing scores and amazing results with no work, cool. But again, 99% of us, we're just not going to be in that pool. And so it's good to just think about, okay, I want to take this seriously. I want to do a good job on my prep. So I think it's good to just plan to invest significant time and energy into this process. And I wish someone had just framed that properly for me when I was first starting out, because I think I kind of like messed around a little bit, for lack of a better expression. Like I got some books, I kind of like dilly-dallied. I had always had success in the past academically. Had never really struggled academically prior to the GMAT. I mean, here and there, some tough classes that I took in college, but like, yeah, I worked hard and I was diligent, but it wasn't like It wasn't like if I worked hard and was diligent, I would still fail. Like that wasn't me, and that's going to be a lot of you. Like you did the work, you showed up, you took care of business, but if you did those things, you would perform well by and large. Um, I recommend for those types of folks, like just expect this to be a bigger challenge. And I think that'll make it easier to be resilient in the process. Because, like I said, I messed around with some books. I got an okay starting score, messed around with some more books, kind of like casually. My score went down. Then I got super serious about studying, took a class, used more books, studied really, really hard. My score went down again. Okay. So that's why I'm talking to you about the scoring algorithm's different. It's a very competitive applicant pool because I don't want you to think that you're not good enough if that happens to you. That's not true. I found success on the exam. I've helped thousands, tens of thousands probably of people at this point have success on this exam. Like it's totally doable. It's just that you might need to change your strategy and your approach multiple times throughout the process, and that's why I'm making this content for you because this didn't exist prior to me making this for you. Okay, so calibrate your expectations accordingly. Look around at the people who are around you who are the best, and say like, okay, I can be on the same level as these people. I may be there already. I may be more talented than them. I may be less talented than them. But with the right strategy, the right diligence, and the right approach, I can be just as or more successful than these people are. And I think that's really important to confront reality with this. It might be easy for you. It probably won't be easy for you just looking at the statistics and the odds, but that doesn't mean it's not doable. Okay. There might be challenges that you face. But if you just accept that it's going to be challenging and that that's potentially something you can use to get better and make it more likely that you will succeed, then you can reframe that challenge into a positive rather than something that's like a weight or like you're getting discouraged because you're comparing yourself to the person you sit next to at work who studied for 2 weeks and got a 785 and a full ride to Harvard Business School. Because let me tell you, those people are out there, and again, like that's amazing. But it can be counterproductive to be comparing yourself to those people or thinking that those are the only people in the applicant pool. That's not true. There's tons of people like you and me who just put our nose to the grindstone and just refuse to give up, and that works too. Okay. Now, having said that, I want that process to be as frictionless as it can possibly be for you. So let's get into some strategies and some pre-planning that you can use to make great decisions from the beginning so that you don't wind up in my situation where it is just like raw blood, sweat, and tears to get you to the goal. And instead you have the right balance of like, yes, you're putting in a reasonable amount of effort and you're pushing yourself, but also you're not just like suffering brutally through the process like I did, okay? So what's the first step to that least friction path? The first step is taking a cold practice exam. You're going to see a lot of noise about this on the internet, and I hate to say this, but it is true, and my relationship with you directly is my priority here, not my relationship with other people in the industry. There's a lot of people in the industry who just want to sell you their program, and I'm not here to say whether that's good or bad. No business ever succeeded without sales. So someone's got to go out there and do the marketing and the selling. Again, neither good nor bad. We're not here to comment on that. But just in terms of your best interest as a student entering this process, I'm going to give you some advice and break down who I think the optimal providers for are you based on budget, timeline, et cetera. But anyone who's telling you to like study first or pay them first before you take your first practice exam, I don't personally trust that. Think about it this way. It's impossible to optimize a path without a starting destination. For example, what's the fastest way for me to get to Paris from an unknown starting destination? It's an absurd question. You cannot optimize that. So that's what that cold baseline is. Yes, you're probably going to resist it. Yes, you're probably a perfectionist. Yes, it's probably not going to feel good to see a bad score. It's not going to feel good to struggle during the exam. It's just that resistance should just be overcome in the name of making the most rational approach to this overall process, if that makes sense. That's my reasoning here, okay? So if you get that cold baseline and it's terrible, who cares? You probably just saved yourself 3 months of prep by just taking that cold baseline, even if it's uncomfortable, because maybe you got a 98th percentile verbal score totally unexpectedly, even though you've always struggled with verbal sections of standardized tests your whole life. Great. Well, now you don't need a program that has great verbal content. You don't have to do any of the verbal content in the program that you choose to go down. And that could save you literal months of life that you could put into almost anything that would be a better investment of time than just studying for a standardized exam that you'll probably quickly move on from. So that's some of the reasoning behind taking a cold baseline test. That's step one to having the most frictionless, most optimized approach to your process here. Now, a lot of people out there are going to give you a piece of advice of like, get familiar with the basics of the test. That's not my approach. Like I just told you, I recommend you just jump into the cold test because there's already so much resistance. And in my experience, a lot of perfectionistic people get into the basics and they're like, oh, I got to complete this whole book before I take this test. And that really slows them down. That really slows them down. But there are a lot of people out there who are well-meaning who are going to tell you like, okay, get familiar with these basic problem types before you take the cold baseline. Here's my point of view on that. That's theoretically acceptable, but if you're finding yourself succumbing to that, like, oh, I can't just do 10 data sufficiency questions to get familiar with the basic format. I need to do 1,000 data sufficiency questions because I can't live with not being good at data sufficiency on that initial baseline exam. Look, I understand that. I highly recommend you just get over that and just force yourself to take that first baseline because you don't want to burn months of your study time losing momentum, going down a rabbit hole that might not be moving your score at all. Like, how do you know you need to do 1,000 data sufficiency questions? That's just you letting your emotions control your business destiny. Most great business decisions are not made based purely on emotion. Just saying. Okay. And I think we mostly would agree on that. Obviously, there's exceptions. But just trying to help you become an efficient decision maker and not let that perfectionism take you down the wrong path, if that makes sense. Perfectionism is not necessarily bad if you channel that energy into the right thing. But if you allow that to take control of your prep, that can create a lot of inefficiency, and it's just something I see all the time. Again, we're a very self-selecting group here, everybody. The types of people who want to do well on a standardized test like the GMAT, who would go out of their way to listen to a podcast about the GMAT in the first place to get an edge, the type of people who want to study and go to a top business program. These are beautiful qualities, everybody. Like the world needs people like you, just like it needs other types of people to do the other types of work that basically needs to get done for all of us to have a great experience here on planet Earth. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but you want to manage it because if you don't manage it and you let your emotions take control of your prep, then it's just going to be inefficient. I'm not saying you're not going to get there. I'm not saying that going off track for a day or two is going to totally derail your studies. It's probably not. You just want to notice when you're getting pulled off track by those maybe like emotions or bad old habits, maybe let's call them, or just counterproductive habits in this particular situation. You want to notice when those are taking off track and be like, okay, I got to get back to making rational bets here because I don't know, most great investors that I've been in touch with don't invest based on emotion. They just don't. They have a purely rational approach to investing, and that's how I recommend you approach this investment of time, energy, resources in the GMAT. Okay, so that's the first step is taking that cold baseline. Once you take that cold baseline, you'll know how big of a gap you need to get to 78 in quant, how big of a gap you need to close to get to 78 in verbal, and how big of a gap you need to close to get to 78 in DI. And that'll dictate your initial phase of prep. You're just focusing on getting up to 78 in those three sections. Now, if you're already above 78 in some of those sections or all of those sections, that's going to dictate your next step, which is what materials should I use? So the materials that you personally should use are a function of your starting score and how far you are from your goal score in each individual section. All right. So you should be able to tell whether you need a strong quant program. You should be able to tell whether you need a strong verbal program. All right. Again, if you're not sure, just reach out to us. We'll help you for free. DM at the GMAT strategy on current social channels, email contact contact@thegmatstrategy.com. Just hit us up anytime. We're here for you. The other things that are going to influence the right materials for you personally are your learning style, your financial budget, and your timeline, how many hours you can realistically invest in this. Don't think about your prep timeline in terms of days, weeks, and months. That's a mistake. Think about your prep time in terms of total hours. And that's how I'm going to talk to you about this decision making that we're going to go through, okay? Let's talk about learning style. Based on your history, do you learn the best from books? Do you learn the best from video and self-paced digital formats? Do you learn best from live instruction, or do you learn best from one-on-one instruction? So think about your past real quick. I'll give you a moment and reflect on what are some of the best learning experiences you've had. What do you think is the easiest way for you to learn new material? For a lot of you, it's going to be some combination of those things. You'll want to write those things down and have them in a document as you make your decision about what the best provider is going to be for you. Okay? So it's really, really important to reflect on learning style because no one wants to or should be studying for this thing longer than necessary. It's already a big time and energy investment. And while it is hard to make perfect decisions from the beginning, let's try to make the best decision that we can from the beginning. The better decisions you make now, the less time and stress and energy you're going to need later. That's the function of investing. The more I invest now and the better my investments are now, the more risk tolerance and more, let's say, freedom I'm going to have in the future. This is just almost unarguably true. So that's learning style. Hopefully you've got a little bit of a handle on what's going to be best for you there. The second thing to consider is your desired score gain, your budget, and your timeline. Now, I'm going to go through several different ways of prepping. I'm going to go from free all the way up to basically like the most expensive in terms of financial budget. That's how I'm going to break this down. And the sort of balance that you're looking at here is the more you can invest, usually the faster you can go. Okay, that's the basic breakdown. So let's start with free. Some of you have no option except to go with free resources, and that's totally fine. I have had significant financial limitations at many points in my career, and yeah, that just is what it is. If you're in that situation, then you can definitely have success here. It might not be the quote unquote ideal thing, but dealing with the reality is the way you're going to have the most success in business. And if your financial reality is budget of zero, then let's deal with that. There is a study plan episode in the past that will give you the core of what you need to plot out the big picture. The most recent version of that, and we've done several versions of this over the years, all of them are helpful, but the most recent version of that I would recommend you go to now to start off if you have a budget of zero is called How to Structure Your GMAT Focused Study Time. It's from January 2024, so about 12 months from in the past from this episode. That should give you a very strong foundation of what your timeline should look like and what kind of free materials you can use beyond what I'm going to recommend right now. We'll also link that in the description of this content. For now, I recommend you go to the library first. See if you can get some books. YouTube is also good, but there's a lot of noise. Most people are going to start with YouTube, and man, YouTube can create a lot of problems, everybody. I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but let's just say that the alignment of incentives on YouTube is a little bit weird. Yeah, let's just put it that way. And you're all intelligent business people. You should be able to watch a video and figure out what the person talking is incentivized to tell you. Let's just put it that way, okay? I've done my best to align my incentives with yours in this process. Hopefully you can fact check everything I'm saying and you can check out our reputation broadly and validate that we're telling you the truth. And if you have feedback on that or if you think that's not true, then let us know, please, by all means. We are very, very open to feedback. And yeah, we're committed to being totally legitimate through and through and being very fact checkable. And if you disagree, I totally respect that. But yeah, doing my best. So with YouTube, again, you're just getting into this place where a lot of people are incentivized to just like push their personal product or their thing they're getting paid to do. Not necessarily good or bad, just something to consider when you're taking their advice. It's also a little hard to get your questions answered on YouTube, but it's definitely possible. So I'm not saying YouTube is like the worst thing, but I think if you go to the library and get a like focused set of books, that is the best place to begin your quote unquote free study plan. And work through that set of books and then follow the advice I give you in the How to Structure Your Time episode, and you should be in good shape. If you don't follow my advice, hopefully it's obvious that I make no guarantees about the results of that process, and it could go 100 different ways. Might be successful, might not. But yeah, that's on you if you don't follow my advice. So just FYI, this is probably not going to come as a surprise. The free route is on average going to be the longest path. There are definitely people out there who can do free resources for a couple weeks, get an incredible score. And again, that's amazing. For the vast majority of us, we're not in that situation. And so we've run an experiment with about 10,000 data points, if you can believe that. And it nets out to around 6 hours of study for each 1 point gain you want to make on your overall score if you're using only free resources. So if you want to make a 100-point gain from 555 to 655, let's say, you should plan to invest about 600 hours in that process. That's not a guarantee. These are just averages. You might be way faster than that. You might be way slower than that. I'm just sharing what I've seen across many, many data points, and you can make of that what you will. So what you're giving up with free resources is speed. And there's a lot of reasons for that. You have to put everything together yourself as someone who's probably going through this process for the first time, rather than a seasoned expert who's going through this for the 10,000th or 11,000th time. And that just creates friction. It's totally doable. You can totally do it. Many people do it every single year. It's just you don't want to be thinking that it's going to be super short unless you're that super, super, super talented person. And if you are, that's amazing. You're definitely the exception to a lot of this advice, and that's cool. That's cool. That's real. Having said that, I've done my best to give you the best advice that I wish I had when I started with free resources, which I did. And I wish I didn't start with free resources, to be candid with you, because I had money to invest. And if I had just invested it, I would have saved myself about 6 months. Real talk. But some of you are not in that position. So trying to set you up for success there. The next investment point up the ladder of monetary investments you could make beyond free is getting some newer versions of books that typically come with digital resources. If you get books from a library, you probably won't have access to the digital resources, including with those books, because somebody else will have already registered them. So you're kind of giving up a little bit there, but you're also have zero cash outlay, so that's the upside. But if you can afford something in, let's say, the 100 to 300 US dollar range, that'll get you a good high quality set of books. And what does that get you? What's the benefit of that? What are you buying with that money? On average, we've seen about 5 hours of study for each 1-point gain you want to make on your overall score. So going from a 555 to 655, you could expect that to take about 500 hours. And spending that $100 to $300 would save you, on average, about 100 hours versus free resources. Again, these are just averages, no guarantees on this. None of this is financial advice or psychiatric advice or anything like that. I'm just sharing the data that I have seen over about a decade in this industry. And we've scraped a ton of sources, and this is what we got. So let's do a little bit of math here. If you're buying back about 100 hours of life for, let's say, on average, $200, that's about $2 per hour. If you make less than $2 an hour at your job or investing that time elsewhere, you could get more than $2 an hour. Then you are making a very good bargain, trading that $200 for an extra 100 hours that you can either use to chill out, if chilling out is worth more than $2 an hour to you, or you could use to grind at your job or start a side hustle, or even driving a rideshare company. You'll probably make more than $2 an hour in most situations. So if you make more than $2 an hour, I believe a high quality set of books is a fantastic investment. That's a good arbitrage on your time. If you make $20 an hour at your job, and you can invest at $2 an hour to buy back 100 hours, that's a 10x gain on your investment, okay, by my math. If you have different math, let me know. In my opinion, if you're going to use books, I think the Manhattan Prep books are the best dollar for dollar. There are other good series of books out there if you don't like Manhattan for whatever reason. The recent editions are not perfect, just FYI. There's quite a few typos, but it's still going to net you a lot of time. And yeah, I've had the most positive experiences with the Manhattan books, but just to be honest with you, books are not going to net you the same results that other more expensive options are by and large. However, if you are that person who learns really well from books, you have a good history of self-paced learning with books, you're very self-disciplined, you don't need external accountability, and you have success with this, then that would be the path that I would recommend going if you're that person. If you're not that person, let me give you a few more options. The next step in the cost sphere is going to be digital self-paced programs. By and large, these are going to be somewhere in the $300 to $1,000 US dollars range, give or take. Some bill monthly, some are a flat rate. What we've seen here is about 4 hours of study for each 1-point gain you want to make on your overall score. So going from 555 to 655, you figure about 400 hours of total time investment. So what are you buying back here? You're buying back another 100 hours of life versus the book investment. So we'll get into the math there in a second. What do you get with these digital classes? You get more structure, you get more organization, you get a kind of mindless step-by-step process you can go through, so you're not having to organize anything on your own. Some of you might learn better from video versus reading a book, so that's a total no-brainer there if you're that kind of person. Despite external appearances, most of these programs are very, very similar across the board, and yeah, we won't get into like commodity markets or anything like that. And I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. That's not what I'm here to do. Um, but what I would say is if this seems like the right approach for you and you're feeling like the digital self-paced thing is for you, then you can feel free to choose a brand that you personally like. Some of the more reputable brands that you'll read a lot about and who advertise really heavily are like Magoosh, Target Test Prep, and GMAT. If this is the route that you personally want to go, then I would recommend just trying each one or trying to get a recommendation from some people around you who you're in touch with who have had success and pick the one that you resonate with most. Um, Selling software is a really high margin business. And so these companies have a lot of cash they can put into advertising. Again, not saying that's good or bad. It's just that's why you're going to hear from these people a lot in the space. Once you get in the space, you're going to get a lot of ads. They're going to be able to pay for placements and things like blogs and like third party YouTube reviewer people who are professional reviewers, if that makes sense. So again, we all know how business works. We're not here to debate whether that's good, bad, whatever. I'm not here to comment on that. I'm just telling you that that's the situation, and that explains some of the experiences you might have as a customer coming into the market. So what's the upside here in terms of math? You're buying back 200 hours now versus free products, by and large. Again, just averages here. Let's average the investment on these digital self-paced products around $800. So you're buying back time at a rate of $8 per hour. Okay, versus versus books. If we say versus free, then you're buying it at a rate of $800 for 200 hours. So that'd be $4 an hour. You can adjust the math up or down, but let's just compare this to books. So buying 100 hours for an additional, let's call it $500, then you're paying about $5 an hour to buy that time back. If you make more than $5 an hour at work, that's probably worth it to you. If you make less than $5 an hour at work, then that might not be worth it to you. Again, just helping you make an informed investment decision here. Yeah, so I already talked about like the paying for placement and stuff like that. There's a lot of that, like there is in any industry, and just make the best decision that you can. Make the best decision that you can, and reach out to us if you're really not sure who you should go with. Quick note on this: you do want to spend some time trying out as many things as you can and figuring out what the best provider is for you. I'll help you out with a quick recommendation on that in a second. I would spend some time with this, but I wouldn't worry about making a perfect decision. At a certain point, you just want to get in motion and then adjust once you have a little bit of experience with each platform. And it's better to do a month on the wrong platform and then switch providers than it is to spend a month trying to pick the perfect provider and then making the wrong decision and then having to switch after a month anyway. So there's a balance between doing diligence and just making the deal happen. And yeah, use this as an opportunity to get better at judging those balances, because you'll probably have to make those kinds of decisions in the future as a business person. The practice test is going to be massively important for this. So I'm just going to assume that you're going to take my advice and take the cold exam. If you're really financially constrained, but you don't want to do the book or free route, then I would say go with Magoosh. I think that's the cheapest. If you really need a lot of help with quant, but less help with verbal, then I think Target Test Prep tends to shine there. If you need a lot of help with verbal, like English isn't your first language, and you're comparatively much better at math, I think that's where GMAT shines. And I want to be clear, I'm only talking about the digital self-paced provider space. I'm not saying these are the best across the board in the entire GMAT industry. There are many different options that I'll talk you through right now. But just if you're thinking digital self-paced is the way for you to go and you're looking for a quick recommendation that's totally unbiased, that's my recommendation and that's what I've seen. And the data bears that out if you do your own research on that. And I am not financially incentivized at all to recommend any of the people I'm recommending to you today. In fact, all of these people have actively tried to harm our business at TGS. And yeah, that's why I'm saying like I'm prioritizing my relationship with you as the end consumer, and you can make of that what you want. Live classes. Let's talk about live classes. So this is getting up into the cost sphere of about $1,000 to $2,000. Okay. So again, some of you are going to get priced out at this point. That's fine. If you're like $1,000 to $2,000, yeah, no problem. I'm going to spend $200,000 on my MBA. What's the big deal here? And you have that kind of liquidity. then you can save yourself some time by and large with live classes. We ran the numbers here. This is about 3 hours of study for each 1 point gain you want to make on your overall score. Okay. So what do you get with a live class? You get a live instructor. You're able to ask questions in real time. You can interrupt the lesson and get clarity. And you can ask people to repeat things in different ways. Maybe you can even get some support outside of class, but just check what the actual offer includes because not all people are generous with their time like that. And a lot of you are also going to benefit from just the in-person accountability of like getting outside the house, getting outside the office, going to a physical location. If that's you and that's the environment where you're going to learn best, then by all means, like I would recommend going this route. So 3 hours for each 1 point gain. Let's say you're going from 555 to 605. You figure that would take that's a 100 point gain. You figure 3 hours for each 1 point gain is about 300 hours total. It could be way more or way less, like I just said, but just speaking in terms of averages, you figure, let's say on average, about $1,500 investment for one of these programs. So now you're buying back time at a rate of $15 per hour. So yes, there is a premium on that, but depending on your specific financial situation, that might be worth it or not worth it to you. Just helping you do the kind of math that I wish I did when I was first starting out with this, because I was just scared to invest and just super uninformed. And yeah, something like this would have really helped me out. I hope it helps you too. If you want a quick recommendation on the live class that I think is best for the widest number of people, I recommend Test Crackers. They're a smaller brand. They're local to the San Francisco Bay Area, but they still do online work. So if you want that live online experience, I think that's a really good way to go. They're definitely not into the whole like slick website kind of thing. They're more about just like teaching well and trying to give people a good client experience. And that's how they've grown their business over time, which I respect greatly. You get a lot more personalized attention with that kind of program versus like some of the larger brands. Having said that, if you're more that large brand consumer, and again, like no judgment here, everybody. I'm a business person. You're a business person. We understand some people like to shop with larger brands. Some people are more that small brand shopper. It's neither good nor bad. It just is what it is. If you want to cross shop with some of the larger brands, that's totally cool. I just don't personally recommend any of those larger brands in terms of live classes. I've worked for a lot of people in the space. This is just my personal recommendation to you. But I would tell you if I thought it was a bad decision to use a larger brand program. It's just not my first recommendation for most people. Okay, so I think you should feel confident moving forward if you're more that big brand shopper, going with a larger brand's live in-person class. I think you'll probably still have a positive experience. In my experience, you will probably just need more help with that. And if you think about a larger business, what they're incentivized to do once you buy one of their products is they're incentivized to sell you more of their products. And I'm not saying that these are bad people. I'm just saying like if you finish their class and you had a moderately good experience, you're more likely to continue buying services from them versus if they just get you the score as fast as possible, you stop shopping with them. Just something to think about, everybody. Just something to think about that most of us are not thinking about when we get into the space. Okay. So hence my recommendation there. Again, if you have more specific questions, you're welcome to reach out anytime. So now we get into the most expensive options, which is one-on-one private instruction. This is going to be somewhere in the $2,000 to $10,000 range total investment. Not even the sky's the limit in terms of what you could invest with people at this point. If you want to drop 30K on GMAT, then those people will gladly accept your money. And I think they make that very, very clear in all of their public facing materials. And again, that's neither good nor bad. If you're that person who's like $30,000, why is it so cheap? This is probably the route for you to go. If you're like, whoa, $30,000, holy cow, there's no way I could afford that even if I wanted to, then that's fine. That's fine. Maybe you go on the lower end. Maybe even 2,000 is just way, way, way outside your budget. And I'm talking US dollar ranges, so you can do your own personal currency conversion if you want to. But most private tutoring experiences are going to be somewhere in the 2,000 to 10,000 range. It's not that you can't get high quality help below 1,000, but yeah, it's just like you're probably not going to get a full-fledged tutoring program start to finish support for under 1,000. Most high-quality providers are in the like $50 to $300 an hour range, so you can do the math on how much instruction you would get for 1,000 with that. And yeah, let's just say the average program you're probably going to want somewhere between like 10 and 20 hours of instruction on average, but some of you are going to want way more than that. Some of you are just going to need a one-off session. That's fine. I'm just talking in terms of averages to help you make a good decision from the beginning. So who should go with private tutors? In general, this is the fastest route to your goal. There's probably obvious reasons for that, but let's just run through them anyway. Everything's fully customized for your specific situation, only working on your specific weaknesses, only working the exact amount on your specific strengths. It's a totally awesome, like built for you, high touch experience. And it's 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 probably got a much higher likelihood of working out well as a result of that. It's also great if you initially took a cheaper option, but that didn't get you where you wanted to go. Maybe you made some progress, or maybe your score went down, like I did when I cheaped out at the beginning. And yeah, this could be something as like a second line of attack for some of you. For others of you, you're just going to want to jump in head first because budget is not the constraint for you. Time is the larger constraint. And that's usually the person who should go with high quality one-on-one help from the beginning. It's just like you're less concerned about the cash, but you're more concerned about the time and you want to get done with this as fast as possible. Okay. So I'm not going to name any specific tutors because they really come and go a lot. Even like tutoring platforms come and go a lot, which is like really, really crazy to think about and an interesting industry to look into, by the way, education platforms. But the best advice that I can give you is just ask your network for direct referrals and try to talk to at least 3 providers. Like I was talking to you about admissions consultants. Admissions consultants tend to be more that like high touch, one-on-one, more expensive service. And as a result, a lot of them can afford to do free initial consultations with you. And I recommend you talk to at least 3 people before you pick a private tutoring company or individual provider to go with. It's a large project. There's a lot at stake beyond just the cash investment. This is your future that you're working on here. And so ideally you want someone who's got a strong track record of success, who you resonate with personally, who seems like they have a good instruction style that works for you personally. If you have an admissions consultant, that is also a data point that's worth looking into. You can ask your admissions consultant if they know any great tutors that you could work with. Just quick caveat here, just be a little bit skeptical potentially of that because a lot of GMAT companies and admissions companies have referral partnerships. So it's not a totally unbiased recommendation in that situation. Okay. I'm not saying it's a bad recommendation. I'm just saying it's not unbiased. It doesn't mean you shouldn't go with their recommendation. Just make sure you talk to them and make sure you talk to more than just that person so that you can make a high quality decision that's good for you. Because at the end of the day, your admissions consultant should not care whether you use their preferred GMAT provider. They should care whether you're successful. Okay. So just think about that as you're going down this path. Yeah, I don't want to say too much about this, everybody, but yeah, the whole like GMAT tutoring and admissions consulting space has like kind of a low barrier for entry, weirdly, because like there's no governing body that says whether you can or can't transact as a GMAT tutor in the space. And all of you are really successful people. If we look at the whole world's population, if you're even considering going to graduate business school in the first place. And so it's a market where people have a lot of purchasing power. And so sometimes you get these people coming into the market who are trying to take advantage of that situation. And I don't want that to happen to you because there's also really great people. And in terms of just front end marketing, sometimes it's hard to tell who's who. And that's why I'm just recommending you do a little bit of diligence. All of you are going to be really good decision makers. It's hard to make a perfect decision, but you should be able with a little bit of diligence to weed out the people where you're like, I don't know if I really trust this person. I'm not sure if they've got the track record that is making me a believer that they can help me get where I want to go. Okay. So also keep in mind that people are often seeking tutoring when they're in a lot of pain already. I mentioned like you might have gone with a cheaper provider, not had success, and then you're like, crap, I only have 2 months. I need a tutor. That's fine if you're in that situation. I was in that situation and it was really, really hard. And yeah, I'm not going to go down that path for now. What's important is you, not me at this moment. But just try not to rush it just because of that pain. Okay. It's okay to be in pain about it. We all make decisions that don't end up working out the way that we thought they would. Sometimes that's part of the learning process, but you don't want the pain to get worse. Okay. So I'm just saying, please talk to at least 3 people before you make a decision, even if that's hard. Okay. Now, if your test is tomorrow, just go with what you can get. But in general, most of you won't be on that short of a timeline. Now, if you need a recommendation for a tutor and you're striking out with your network because you just don't know anybody, shoot us a DM, send us an email, and we will ask you some questions about your specific situation and try to get you set up with the right person. It's going to be more current that way. Like I said, platforms come and go, individual tutors come and go from the industry. And it can be a little bit difficult to make a good decision if you don't have personal referrals. And yeah, again, we don't have any referral partnerships or relationships with anybody in the space at all. And so we can give you some advice that's not based on like a misalignment of financial incentives there. Okay. Um, let's see. Okay. So tutoring, just rounding out the upside here. Why would you pay so much beyond just the fact that it's a customized like high touch experience? With tutoring, we've run the numbers. You're probably looking at around 2 hours of study for each 1 point gain. I'm averaging these. I'm making the numbers easier to digest. But like if you did your own research and you looked at about 10,000 data points, this is what you would see. So on a 100 point gain from 555 to 655, you're maybe looking at around 200 hours, give or take. Again, you might be way faster than that. You might be way slower than that. Um, this is assuming you get a good, reputable provider who knows what he or she is talking about. But it's let's say a reasonable expectation. Let's average the cost around 3,000 US dollars, and you're buying back about 100 hours of life that you would not get with a live in-person class. So there you're buying back time at a rate of about $30 an hour. It's much less if you compare it to free. Okay, so if you compare it to free, 200 hours for a 100 point gain instead of 600 hours for a 100 point gain, that's 3,000 divided by 400. The math's going to be a little bit more complicated there. But there we're getting into the like sub $10 an hour range. But for most of you, if you're cross shopping, oh, should I do the live course? Should I just get a tutor from the beginning? Some of that's going to be learning style and budget, but some of it is just going to be whether you're okay with the arbitrage of buying back time at a rate of $30 an hour. If you make $50 an hour at work, I think that's a no-brainer. If you make $10 an hour at work, it might be a harder decision. It still might be the right decision for you. Money is only one part of making good investments, but it is a significant part, and so I want you to be set up for success. So yeah, that's how I see it. For most of you, on average, you're going to end up with an extra $3 million from this whole MBA process across the course of the next 30 years of your career. That's probably a low estimate, but I'd say that's roughly average what I've seen people make in terms of additional compensation. Not that it's all about the money, but money doesn't hurt. And so, just run the numbers and see if you can get a comparable return on capital anywhere else versus investing here. Just something to think about. If you can get a better return on capital elsewhere, probably a good idea to invest there. So that's the basic rundown of cost, learning style, budget, and timeline. If you want to go faster than any of these options that I've recommended, or you haven't seen the results that you want to see with your current provider, or you're just not seeing results fast enough with your current provider, then I would definitely recommend booking a call with us. We specialize in speed and efficiency, and we can definitely get you the fastest results possible. So if that's you, please reach out. You can head to the website. You can check out the video to make sure our instruction style is a good fit for you. And on the call, we never try to like close you or do anything like weird or even any convincing of anything at all. We'll just do a hardcore assessment of your situation. We'll set you up with a study plan, no obligation. We'll give you some options. And if you are interested in how we do things and you like our style, then we will tell you about some of our paid products. But it's not something that we ever try to push on people because we're just trying to get the people who are the right fit into our program and help everybody else out for free. That's what we do. Yeah, if we're not a fit for you, we'll hook you up with something better on that call. It's a huge issue in the space. I dealt with it, like I've said many times. We haven't offered that service in the past. So yeah, please take advantage of that if you're curious. If you're not, if that's not a good fit for you, if you're like, who's this guy trying to get me on a call to sell me something and you've had bad experiences with that, that's not what this is. But if you don't believe me, that's totally cool. Totally fine. No big deal. So hopefully now you've got an idea of where you're going to get your content instruction from. So let's zoom out to the big picture again. You've got your baseline, you've got your provider. At this point, your job is just to put your head down and block out all the many distractions that you will probably encounter during your GMAT prep, okay? You've done your diligence, you've made a good investment in a program that seems like a reasonably good fit for you based on a starting score data point, based on a bunch of instruction I just gave you after like a decade of experience and 10,000 data points, give or take. And now you've made the best bet that you can. And my advice here, which might sound a little bit strange, is just do what they tell you to do. Work on becoming a great executor. Work on being very good at following their directions. Yes, ultimately you're here to be a leader, but when you invest with a provider, you are a follower. They are leading you. And you want both skill sets. You want to be a great leader and you want to be a great follower. Both are super valuable at different points in the business life cycle. Okay. So, the reason I bring this up is you'll probably be tempted to spend a lot of time on forums. You'll probably be tempted to spend a lot of time on social media. You'll probably be tempted to spend a lot of time on YouTube. And it's a very rational thought to be like, oh, I've kind of got some downtime here. Let me just check out this YouTube video about GMAT. Like, that'll probably help me, right? Like, something's better than nothing. And unfortunately, everybody, something is not better than nothing in this situation. I strongly recommend that you go with whatever provider you go with. Whether they hate us or love us or whatever, who cares? I just want you to get the best person for you. And take their advice. They're probably sustaining their business in the GMAT space for a lot of very good reasons. They probably help at least some segment of their customer base. Okay. So take their advice. And I really don't recommend trying to mix it with other people's free advice on the internet. Like that's just very difficult. Perhaps obviously this podcast is an exception because we give a lot of advice that's assuming you're working with other people, not us. And that's going to be the vast majority of you anyway, for a lot of different reasons. And that's totally cool. I started this business as like, as like pure social impact. And then it just happened to be the case that people wanted to pay us. And so we made products. But yeah, we haven't gotten away from that. So, yeah, I mean, if you don't believe me, that's totally fine. That's your choice. But just trying to be as honest with you as I possibly can be. So a lot of our content is assuming that you're working with other programs, but outside of that, I just haven't found a good reputable source that's not going to just try to push their way of doing things, and that can really hamper your progress. So if you need to turn this off and just go heads down on your program, do it. That's going to be the most efficient advice for your success. And if my advice is conflicting with what your provider is telling you to do, go with your provider. They know your situation better than I do. And I would rather you have a positive experience with them than have another listener to our podcast. Honestly, like I just want you to have the success that you want. But if our advice is not conflicting with theirs, then highly recommend it, perhaps obviously. But other sources like YouTube, Reddit, common places, you're just going to get a lot of conflicting opinions. You're going to have a lot of non-experts sharing their opinion. It's not that that's a bad thing. Like sometimes it's good to be able to relate to other people who are in this process with you, people who are struggling, so you're not feeling alone. Community advice, if you need advice on how to make good decisions. I'm not trying to pretend I'm the only source of advice that can help you. That's not true. So there are upsides that you can get from that, but just coming back to the whole like managing ourselves thing, just notice when that's pulling you off track. Notice when you're like, oh man, I'm always like feeling super demotivated after spending time on this platform, or like, oh, I took this person's advice and it like totally like hurt me and took me down the wrong path for a whole week. If you're investing in a program, just take their advice. You will get the fastest results by just executing on what they tell you to do because their advice will probably fit best with their particular program. Okay. So just something to keep in mind, something I wish somebody told me and reminded me of. I probably already knew it deep down when I was studying back in the day, but I just kind of got distracted, honestly. And my advice with staying focused is just if you get distracted, just refocus. I think staying focused is really just refocusing and noticing you're getting off track. And I talked about that earlier with the whole perfectionism thing, okay? So just notice when the emotions are driving the ship and be like, okay, emotions are not going to get me a great GMAT score. Working with a rational, structured plan and being diligent is going to get me a great GMAT score. So let me refocus on that. It's not that you can't vent to people around you. It's not that emotions aren't an important part of this. It's not that you shouldn't try to feel your best emotionally. I think you should do all those things. And if you want some help on the emotional side of GMAT prep, we've got an episode called How to Support Someone Studying for the GMAT. And that should really, really help you out if you're struggling. But yeah, just try not to let those emotions take you too far off course of spending lots and lots and lots of time on forums and on YouTube, just learning random facts and tidbits of information, because usually that time should either be spent on your provider's platform doing what they already told you to do, or not thinking about GMAT, working on something else that's application related, or just taking some rest time and personal time and shutting off for a little bit. So that whole something's better than nothing, generally not true of free content on the internet, okay? Just a really, really important point. And perhaps obviously it's not in my best interest if I wanted a lot of people to listen to our podcast here to tell you that. And hopefully that's at least some proof that I have your best interest at heart here. Um, but yeah, that's enough of that. So, um, if you're in the content building phase, just thinking about the big picture here, that's usually the first phase of GMAT prep is relearning a lot of material that you used to know well, like exponent math, long division. There's no calculator in the quant section, things like that. You might be learning some new stuff like GMAT specific styles of problems like critical reasoning and data sufficiency. All of that is kind of like the next step after you pick your provider and you put your head down and you start to block out the distractions. So you're going to be learning stuff, you're going to be relearning stuff. And the main piece of advice that I can give here is spend at least a little bit of each one of your study sessions on review. A high quality provider is going to build some review time into your study plan. So definitely take their advice on that if they're recommending it. If you're not sure how much review you should do, just spend the first 10% of every study session studying stuff you've already studied. That could be facts and figures like flashcards and study sheets, or it could be redoing problems that you've already seen. And if you listen to that How to Structure Your GMAT Focused Study Time episode from about 10 months ago, I'll walk you through some more specific advice on that. But here's the point that I want to make. Make sure you're not just burning through a bunch of problems and thinking that's going to move your score. I know that's a very, very logical belief, but it's super, super rare that that works. It usually only works if you're that super smart, like 1% of people who basically could do anything and get a great score. And if that's you, again, totally cool. But I want you to know that's what I did, and my score went down twice by doing that. Okay, so let's just talk quickly about what is good review so that you're set up for success here and you don't have to go to another episode if you don't want to. Number one, make sure that you have something to write down that you learned from every single problem. Even if it's just, okay, I'm good on this area of exponents. I don't need to practice this anymore. That could be your takeaway from a problem where you did really well. But maybe you got the problem wrong. Maybe there was some content issue that you need to learn. That's a good takeaway. Or maybe it's something strategic, like you did algebra, but you should have plugged in the answers or something like that. Just have something you can write down that you learned from every single problem and make sure you catalog those. It could just be a super simple spreadsheet of like learnings per problem, or it could be something more analog. But basically, you want to have those in an organizable format so you can start to notice patterns of where you're missing questions and what your top takeaways are, things that you end up writing down a lot. And look at that at the start of every study session during that 10% review time. And that'll help you figure out what you need to focus on over time. And the better you can focus on the things that are going to move the needle the most for you, the faster you're going to be done with this thing. Okay. So it's not rocket science, but it's definitely a lot more energy than just completing a bunch of stuff. And that's critical. You can definitely waste a lot of time by just thinking the more is more approach works well. That's generally not true. A couple just final tips here as we round out the episode. Once you've completed the curriculum of your provider, you want to take another practice exam to measure your progress. By the way, I don't think I mentioned this before, but you definitely want to take your initial cold baseline exam from MBA.com. Those are the official practice tests you can get to for free. Now, once you've finished your provider's program, is a great time to take that second practice test and measure progress. If you're not seeing the progress that you want to see, like I said, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to help. If you are seeing good progress, then that second practice test will help you double down on any focus areas that you might need to grind on, or you might hit your goal score already, in which case that's awesome news, and you're on to the next thing of changing the world. So if your provider tells you to take another exam in the middle of their program, take their advice. Like I said, if my advice conflicts with theirs, do what they say and measure them based on their results. If they can get you good results, great. If they're not getting you good results, please talk to us. Again, if the score is not moving and you're executing on your side, that's not good. Review the exam. It might be that you're not executing well, in which case you definitely want to look in the mirror and have those hard conversations with yourself. But if you're executing really well and you're doing what they're telling you to do and your score is not moving or it's not moving fast enough, then that might be time to switch, okay? And maybe that's obvious, but I just wish someone had mentioned that to me so that I didn't start thinking I was crazy and that it was all my fault and that I wasn't as intelligent or hardworking or like cut out for this as I thought I was initially. Like all that is not true. It's just a very difficult exam. Like I said at the top of the episode, it's a totally different ball game than what most of us are used to playing. And so you might just need a different approach, and that's super normal. Yeah. Now, I think actually that's probably a good point to make there. Like if you're executing well and the score's not going up, probably need a new program. If you are not executing well, then you need to start executing better. And we have a bunch of great content on that. If you struggle with that, check out the How to Be More Disciplined episode and How to Score High Consistently episodes that are about 6 months ago in the feed, I think. That'll really help you out on the execution side. If you're executing well and your score's going up, keep doing what you're doing. That's awesome. Okay, so at that point, you'll review your exam, you'll note the areas for improvement, you'll pick a top three, and then you'll focus on those top three until you are much better at them, observably better. And then when you're observably better at those top three things, you'll take another practice exam and again, measure your progress. And if everything goes well, just so you can see the big picture, you're going to take your baseline cold test, you're going to choose the right provider, you're going to grind on their program without distractions, you're going to take a test, score is going to go up, and you'll either be at your goal score or it'll be very clear what you need to work on. You'll work on those things, score will go up again, and then eventually you'll hit your goal score. That's what it looks like when it goes well. And then when it goes poorly, you'll know. And we've got a whole episode actually on how to switch providers if you need to do that. It's just called how to switch GMAT providers. And again, you can feel free to reach out to us if you have questions about that or your specific situation seems like you need some additional advice. Okay, just a few parting tips here to help you have the most success possible. Use the official materials from MBA.com as much as possible. If you can use those in conjunction with your provider or your provider uses those, that's highly recommended. If your provider's like, yeah, don't use those, work on our stuff first, and then use the official materials, then again, you want to just like let them advise you with that. And then if that works, great. If it doesn't work, that's when you can make the switch. Second tip, focus on high quality scratch work from the beginning. Always use a separate piece of paper. Don't be doing a bunch of bad scratch work like in the book itself, scratching on problems. Don't do that. That's not how the exam's going to be. Exam's on a computer. You can't mark up anything on the screen. All your scrap paperwork is going to have to go on a separate piece of paper during the test. Start practicing that way from the beginning. It'll help you develop really good habits from the start. It'll probably save you at least, 1 to 2 months on your whole timeline there. Very simple, but very powerful. Third and final tip here, keep a list of questions that you want to come back to and revisit. And I recommend resolving those on a regular basis. Like I said, during that 10% time, you can focus on like facts, figures, study sheets, flashcards, that kind of thing. I've got a lot of recommendations about that in other episodes, how to structure your study time. Here, we're just focused on how to start well. But part of starting well is creating a log of problems where you're like, I'm not good enough at that problem yet, and I would like to be better at it. And then making the time to resolve those on a regular basis. Most people make this quote unquote like error log that you'll hear a lot about. And then they just tell themselves they'll come back to it later. And I haven't seen people have good results with that. I think you'll have much better results by just picking a number like 5 per day and resolving 5 per day. That'll really save you like another couple months. Okay, so those 3 tips, using official materials, focusing on high quality scratch work from the beginning, and resolving problems that you've seen on a regular basis instead of leaving all that to the end, that probably could cut down your study time by like 3 months. It's that powerful, even though it's super simple. So I tried to be as complete as possible without overloading you. I hope I have succeeded with that. And that's how you start your GMAT studies well in 2025. We'll fill in more details of what you need to be successful with this process as time goes on. And we have also filled in many of the details in past episodes. So feel free to search the feed with any terms that you're interested in learning about. And hopefully you get some nice hits from our past content. Definitely let us know if there are specific things you're struggling with, and we'll do our best to address it in future content. We actually have a survey. It's linked in the description of this content. Definitely not required, but we really appreciate it. If you do give us feedback, it helps us help the GMAT community more. And if you're that community investment, good karma type of person, then we super appreciate you the most. And we'll do everything we can to help you out as much as we possibly can in exchange for that valuable feedback that you give. But if that's going to be friction for you, if you're not a fill out a survey type of person, no stress. It's all good. But perhaps obviously we don't want to make things that aren't going to be helpful for people or that make no sense. So please, if you have feedback, just shoot us a DM, say like, hey, I hate everything that you do. Cool, heard. Hey, you're awesome. Really liked X, Y, and Z about, this content that you put out. Thanks. We'll do more of that kind of thing. As always, my greatest hope is that this material will make your studies as easy and as painless as they can possibly be. If you want more tips and strategies for optimizing your performance on the exam, please head to our website, thegmatstrategy.com, which is linked in the description of this content if you just want to click the hyperlink, and check out our free video that I mentioned on how to reach your dream GMAT score in half the normal time. That'll save you a ton of time, much like what I've done here for you today. In the meantime, this is a regular show, so please subscribe and please stay positive and stay consistent with your studies. You can do this. Talk to you all soon.